Are you a personal trainer and struggling to get your clients good results? Watch this.
Our first caller is Jonah from Colorado.
Jonah, good to see you again, man. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm surprised you remembered me, Sal. Excuse me.
Yeah. I've talked to you like 4 times.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about when I got on here. I was like, it's good to see you guys again. But thanks for having me on. It's really, I really appreciate it.
What can we do?
So yeah, I'll get right into it. I've been doing coaching for 3 years now. I played college football. I played football all the way through college. Tried to be a professional. When that didn't really go anywhere, I wanted to get to the point of understanding why I was never able to push myself to the level that I wanted to, why my body was always in chronic pain, which led me to get 6 certifications in personal training, nutrition, and behavior change, and then allowed me to be a personal trainer at the center that trained me, then went to 24-Hour Fitness, and then now became an online coach, helping people get in shape and really reestablish their love for themselves and their fitness. And I got in the best shape of my life, even better shape than when I was a college athlete. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. And that's why I love doing what I do. And coaching is what I'm meant to do. That's why I listen to you guys all the time, and being able to meet you guys has been awesome. So my question really is, I meant to do this, but I'm having a hard time being a part of multiple coaching groups, right? I met you at the NCI event, and I just want to pick your brain on understanding the line between me being able to be a better coach and the person being ready to make the appropriate change necessary to see the changes that they want, if that makes sense.
So like how far do you push them?
Or are you talking about yourself personally? You're talking about yourself personally with going through all the coaching and then applying it to yourself.
So kind of in the sense of like, there's 2 schools of thoughts out there, at least from my perspective, right? Where coaches are able to really connect with their clients and see the results, or help them see the results they want. And then there's another school of coaches that like the client doesn't want it bad enough. And I'm in this weird mixed up land of understanding like where that line is. Like, if I can't reach a certain person, and I know I'm not going to be the right coach for everybody, but is there a line where I need to become a better coach, or just understand that person may not be ready to make the changes that they need to see?
Well, both schools of thought are correct, because there's going to be people that just aren't going to make the change, and then there's going to be people that are challenging that requires you to be a better coach. So I don't think that one school of thought is more right than the other. I think they both.
Well, I would say number one is it's always your fault.
Yeah.
If you're the coach. So it's always your fault. Number 2 is accept the stuff that you can do and what you can't do. So what do I mean by that? Well, first, set some boundaries. And the best time to do this is when you first get a client. So listen, here are my policies now that you're hiring me. If you cancel, you got to give me at least 24-hour advance notice. Otherwise, you lose your session. If you do this, more than 2 times in a month or whatever you decide is right for you, then you'll lose your spot, or you could potentially lose your spot. Ultimately, the results are up to you. I can't work out for you. I can't eat for you. I can't change behaviors for you. I'm here as a guide. So ultimately, the results are up to you. And you set the boundaries. And then you respect your boundaries. But beyond that, you can't force somebody to do anything. And you got to figure this. You got to figure this out for yourself, where your boundaries are. I know for me, I had a realization where it was like, look, if the client's showing up twice a week to see me, and then they're eating bad on their own or whatever, so they're not losing weight. If they didn't train with me, they wouldn't even work out. So I'm doing something. For me, that was okay with me. But if they no-showed me or they canceled a bunch of times in a row, that was my boundary. Like, look, at least respect my time. I have a business. And there's other people that can fill up that space. So you got to set those boundaries and then just honor those. But at the end of the day, it's all your fault, which means if it doesn't work out, you got to accept it. Look, I couldn't figure out how to get to this person. I couldn't figure out how to work with them. And that's fine. That's okay. We're going to have to move on.
There's also levels to this, right? Like when you're scaling like you are right now, I remember like the first couple of years of training clients, like I would say I probably had a mix, I don't know, of 50-50. 50% of the clients I really enjoyed training because they would apply the things I told them. The other 50% were, kind of a headache, inconsistent, lied about stuff, could never get them to follow all the stuff. And at that point in my career, I was a little held hostage to still keeping those people on my roster because I needed to build a business. But over time, what happens is, one, you get better at your craft, setting the boundaries like Sal's saying, and then taking responsibility as the coach, you're getting better. Also recognizing, too, that some people, just getting them to show up is a massive win, right? And you're already impacting their life there. So also understand that, right? Like, not everybody is gonna be like hardcore, measure away their food, show up every single day, like check in like they're supposed to. Some people just aren't there yet. And as a coach, you got to kind of meet them where they're at. And, and Sal tells a story that he's told on the podcast probably 100 times about the lady that it took him 2 years just to get to read one nutrition page, a day and that was like a huge leap. You know what I'm saying? Like he couldn't get her to follow a diet for 2 years because she was just so opposed to even following anything like that. And then he finally at least got her to accept reading one page 2 years later. So understand that you're going to have a wide range of people at all different levels, and a good coach can meet those clients and set goals for them that stretch them a little bit, but aren't so overwhelming that they're just not going to adhere to it whatsoever. So you're trying to find that juggle. And then as you get better at doing this and your roster gets more consistent and filled with the people you like, then you could kind of be a little picky and choosy. Then you build a reputation. Like, once I got to a place where I'd been doing this for a long time, I'd built this reputation that you couldn't even train with me until you submitted almost like an application to me. Like you had to apply to train with me. Part of that application process was you had to track your own food for 2 weeks, do these pictures. Like you had to do all this stuff before I would even take money from you. So you can start, and then what that did for me was like it weeded out all the people that weren't serious. Like if you weren't willing to do that on your own before you're even paying me, then you're not even ready to become a client of mine. And so, but you can't, trying to do that when you're also scaling is also challenging. So I understand.
And you may have different boundaries. Like that was Adam's boundary.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, at that point in your career, right?
Yeah, it changes. I mean, in the beginning too, you need the clients, you need the volume, you need the practice. So to deal with all these different personalities is definitely a tough part of the job that you're going to have to navigate through. And to be able to reach them and tell them and communicate what they need to hear in the most simplistic form from the beginning. You're just going to get better at that and clearly conveying that from the beginning, so that way you get that kind of buy-in. But I mean, honestly, everything has to be clear up front. Like whatever it is that, is in terms of your boundaries, in terms of the expectations of everything going into it. And then you can't control the rest other than just trying to communicate your best and feed them information that they need.
Yeah. And a lot of it depends on, look, if I was training a bunch of people who were going to compete in a bodybuilding competition or athletes in a sport or, something very serious where there's a targeted goal or whatever. You don't show up and you're not serious. You're out. I'm not working with you, right? Or off the team or whatever. If I'm training the everyday average person, it's totally different. The context is different. I'm looking at, for me at least, okay, this was me, right? I want to be able to change this person's life, right? I want to be able to help them develop a relationship with exercise and nutrition that will last them the rest of their life. That's a long timeline. So, Adam talks about it took 2 years with this one client, and I had clients that took them 4 years to lose 30 pounds, right? But then after that, like they kept it off for the next 10 years, right? Now we're on year 10, and these people haven't gained the weight back. So the timeline is different. Individuals are different. And I think the key is this, is, you really got to love people. And what I mean is I don't mean feel love for them. I don't always feel love for my clients, but I actively love them in the sense that I was honest. I have a friend right now who's dealing with a 22-year-old kid their son, who's abusing drugs and alcohol. And we had this conversation over it. And they were advised to kick him out. And they said, we love him. And the therapist said, look, that means you have to create what they said. You have to create a bottom. They have to hit bottom. You have to create that. And so loving them means you have to tell them they can't stay there anymore. You have to create these boundary type of deals. So how does this apply to what I'm talking about with clients? You can be very honest. John, the reason why you're not losing weight is because you refuse to do everything that I tell you. Yeah, like that's honest. But then there's compassion. I get it. It's hard. When you're ready, you let me know. You see? And then you have your boundaries. John, look, you no-showed on me. Remember, if you no-show on me again, I got to give that to somebody else who's willing to respect my time. Like I would talk to my clients this way that I had relationships with who I trained for 10 years. You know, you could be very honest and compassionate at the same time, and it was very effective. And some people just take a long time, and you got to look at them and the individual and say, okay, what's a win for them? Like, okay, you know, she's not eating a bag of potato chips every day. That's a big deal for her. Like she's been doing that for the last year that I've been with her. She just stopped doing that. Like that's a big, or they're showing up. They're showing up every single time to their workouts on time. Everything else isn't great, but before that, they weren't even doing that. So, but that was me, right? So you have to paint that for yourself, be solid, communicate those boundaries, and then be consistent with them with empathy and honesty. And what you'll find is you'll be very effective. You're not going to be 100% effective. It's just not, but you will be more effective.
I want to touch on something that Justin said that I think is really important because it reminds me of even leading trainers, just being in the leadership role, period, which you are as a coach. You're leading this person or these people. And that was the laying out the clear expectation. There was a clear shift in my career as a manager leading other trainers when I'd have this challenge, like after I've had this trainer working for me for 6 months and they weren't doing some of the things that I wanted to do. And it was why it was always challenging for me was because I just expected that they knew that they would see their peers, what their peers were doing, that they knew what the job entailed. But I didn't really sit down and like communicate like here's the rules, here's the way I want things done. And that was, so it always made these awkward conversations and I was always in limbo and I let them stay on the staff too long and they got mad at me and they had resentment when I'd sit them down 6 months later and tell them they were doing these things wrong. And that shift was, it became very important that when I hired somebody on, I had this conversation that I had practiced over time that became very scripted of like, okay, here are my expectations for you as a trainer working for me. The same thing that you would do with a client. And laying that out makes these future conversations that Sal and Justin are both talking about much easier. If you don't hold yourself accountable to having these boundaries like Sal's talking about, and then like Justin's talking about, laying it out clearly at the very beginning of them hiring you, then you're going to be in these weird, awkward situations where you're like, oh, I just assumed that they knew they were supposed to do these things that I said, or I just assumed that they would listen to me. It's like, no, don't assume. Sit down and be very clear from the beginning your expectations of this coaching session or coaching journey with you, and then it'll be much easier to have those follow up conversations later.
Yeah, does that help you a little bit?
That helps so much. It's just a lot of what I thought. I knew you guys were going to say it, but hearing it sounds so much, and it's the exact reason why I listen to you guys, and I try to emulate your guys' coaching as much as I can in my own. That helps a lot, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonah.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, man.
Yeah, it was good seeing you guys. Talk to you soon.
You too, man.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's important too to communicate that it's a hard job.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Dealing with humans is hard.
listen, I want to be very clear here, okay? The three of us did this for over 2 decades, lots of experience. We were all in our space, right? In our local areas, definitely considered some of the more successful trainers. And our fail rate was more often than not. So The truth is, as a coach, helping people change their life and change their behaviors, even if you kill it and you crush it, you're going to fail more often than not. Now, you'll do a lot better than the average coach, and they'll do a lot better than if they try to do it on their own. But it's just, there's a lot of fails. So you really have to love this, and you have to be very, very smart about how you approach your boundaries, how things are communicated, who you're working with. Otherwise, it can be so frustrating. It can be, and a lot of coaches and trainers quit. Yeah. They quit over something like this because they can't figure it out, and they're like, "This is too hard. Nobody wants to do what when I tell them or whatever." I mean, it's hard.
Well, this is a very common question for new trainers coming in because the passion is so high, and they want to change people's lives. They want people to adhere to this plan that they put together and everything to work out the way that they see it in this vision for this client of theirs that they're so passionately trying to move them towards. And it's very tough to get to a place where you can communicate clearly how this is going to go, and also like be able to predict somewhat based on somebody's personality
That's a good one.
You know, what types of directions to steer them a little bit or focus on, to get them to at least move a little bit closer towards that vision you have for them. But it's reps. At the end of the day, like, it's going to be hard. There's going to be like clients that don't come back. There's going to be flaky clients. There's going to be a lot of that, initially. And it's everything that I've learned in terms of training. And yes, it sucks looking back and being like, I didn't help that person very well. And there was like a percentage that was a lot higher back then that I probably wasn't reaching, but I was doing the reps. I was doing the work. I was continuously trying to improve. And I think that's really the mindset you got to have.
Well, there's a reason for that. And you hit it right on the head, Justin, that I think is so important. And or at least it resonated with me when you said it, because there's two things I remember as trainers getting started that they failed to realize was a big part of the job. One of them we all know is sales. We talk about that all the time. Like, you don't sign up to be a sales guy or girl like normally to be a trainer. You want to help people. And so when
and that's such a big part of your job.
it's such a huge part of the job. The second huge part of your job that you don't normally sign up for and realize is leadership. You may think that, I'm into this like coaching, passionate for people, helping people, but learning to be a good leader is a major part of being a good coach.
Yeah, you're not just an information center.
No, and you're not just a counter or a programmer. Like, you're leading people in a direction, and it takes major skill to lead all different types of personalities at all different levels and places in their life. And so that, Justin, what you said is such an important leap in leadership. And I remember that leap for myself leading trainers. That massive struggle I had, it was the same exact struggle. It's just mine was communicating to my staff, and getting frustrated later to have those conversations, and then thinking like, man, am I a bad manager? Am I bad at this? Do I not know what I'm doing? It's like, no, what I'm not doing is when our first interaction together, that first day they meet me as their boss, I'm not doing a good job of laying out the expectations, and you can never over communicate that. So I learned to communicate that really well. And then those follow-up conversations were actually pretty easy because you already said it. A lot of times you don't even have to use it.
Established.
That's right. It's already been established. And so I think that's such an important.
It sets the stage for ownership for them, right? Because they know the expectations. They know they're not meeting the expectations. You do this with a client, you don't even have to say anything to you. They come to you. Hey, look, I know I did that thing. I know I didn't show up. I apologize. Hey, listen, I got to cancel again. If you need to give my time to someone else, I totally understand, because the expectations, they were already set. But you said something about predicting clients. This happens after a long time, but you developed a superpower. I know we've all talked about this when you've trained people for a long time, where you can sound like a wizard, where you could tell them, hey, John, this is what's going to happen. Here's what you're going to feel. Yeah. I know you're this kind of person. And they look at you like, how do you know? Or then when it happens, oh my God, you're totally right. It's like, well, I've trained like 50 people just like
you're like that guy at the carnival that's like guessing somebody's weight. Right away, like right on the money.
Yeah, exactly.